Hi, this is Julie Harland, and I'm your Math Gal. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com, where you could search for any of my videos organized by topic. This is part 10 of Ellipses, and we're going to do these 4 different problems on this video. So let's do this problem. Find the standard form of the equation for the ellipse satisfying the given conditions, and then graph the ellipse. So the foci are at 0 plus or minus 3. So I'm just going to note that those happen to be what? On the y-axis, right? So those are the foci. This is not part of the graph, right? So we have focus 1 and focus 2, which means the major axis is on the y-axis. And actually we know the vertex, one of them is 0, negative 6. So here we know we've got that as one of the vertices. So there's another corresponding one right on the other side at 0, positive 6. So this is going to be a vertical ellipse because the foci are on the y-axis, right? And so remember what the formula, the equation is going to be x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. And we know what goes under the y squared. It's going to be 6 squared, which is 36. So you could write 6 squared or 36. All right, now we also know what the c is for our problem. C is 3. So if c is 3, then c squared is 9. And now we can use the relationship between a squared, b squared, and c squared to get the other number right here. Okay, so remember how it works. C squared is the bigger number minus the smaller number. Since 36, since the y-axis is the major axis, that's going to be the bigger number. So 36 minus b squared, right? But c squared we know is 9. So we could actually just write in 9. So 9 equals 36 minus b squared. Now that's a b. I don't want it to look like a 6. B. Okay. So what I'm going to do is add b squared to both sides and subtract 9. So b squared is 36 minus 9. All right, so what is 36 minus 9? 27. So b is, so b squared is 27, which is all you really need to know, right? So it's plus or minus the square root of 27, which I know we can simplify that, but it's really not necessary because what we need to know is what to put under here, which is 27. But it does say to graph it. So this is why I think it's easier to leave it as square root of 27. Approximately where is the square root of 27? Well, square root of 25 is 5, so this is a little bit bigger than 5. So it looks like the other vertex is just over here. It's a little bigger than 5 and a little than negative 5. And now all we're doing is sketching it. It's not going to be perfect. Okay, something like that. Sorry, doesn't look so great. But again, we're just sketching the ellipse. So you can see the foci, you can see the vertices, you can see that it's a little bit longer in the vertical direction. So we've done exactly what was asked for us, which was to write the equation and graph it. Now try this all on your own. Here's our next problem. Find the standard form of the equation for the ellipse satisfying the given conditions and graph the ellipse. What happened to my P? There we go. So we're given that the foci are plus or minus 3, 0. So this is similar to the last problem. We've got the foci are right here. I'm just going to say that's not part of the ellipse, so I'm going to label those as the foci. But the x-intercepts are plus or minus 5. So on the x-axis, I know we've got it going through 5 and negative 5. So again, we know to write the equation. It's going to be in this form. And we can see, since the x-intercepts are plus or minus 5, the 5 squared or 25 goes into the x squared term. So we need to find out where the intercepts are on the y-axis. And by the way, notice I said x-intercepts instead of vertices, but it's really the same thing. Because if the foci are on the x-axis, right, then x is the major axis, and the intercepts are the same thing as the vertices of the ellipse. So what we know is we've got this, it's always the bigger number minus the smaller number. So again, it's going to be 25 minus this other number, and I'm going to call that b squared. If I call that b into there. So we've got, but I know c squared, right? C squared, well, c is 3, okay, because the focus is at plus or minus 3. So instead of c squared, I could write 9. So I've got b squared is 25 minus 9. So b squared is 16. So b is plus or minus 4. This is actually easier than the last problem. If b squared is 16, then 16 is what goes into the y squared. So we've got our equation. And then to graph it, we know that this is 4 squared, so on the y-axis it's going through 4 and negative 4. And then we just sketch the graph of the ellipse going through those 4 points. And that's it. All right, here's our next one. So we have the foci at 0 plus or minus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put this foci at plus or minus 2. So we know the major axis is the y-axis. So we know there's going to be the bigger number under the y-axis this time, under the y squared, sorry. And we're not giving the y-intercepts, we're actually given the x-intercepts. So if the x-intercepts are 4 and negative 4, we could plot those. So here we've got 4 and negative 4. And keep in mind, that's the minor axis, right? But it also means that underneath the x squared is where the 4 squared goes. So 4 squared would be 16. So I'm trying to find the values on the y-axis, all right? So again, I know c squared is, actually, instead of writing c squared, how about I note that c is 2, right? C is 2, so c squared is 4, okay? So I know that 4, right, which is c squared, is the bigger number. Well, this time it's what's underneath the y squared. Again, I'm just going to call that b squared minus the smaller number, since that's the minor axis. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So b squared is 20. Right, so if b squared is 20, then b is plus or minus, oops, forgot the equal sign. So on the y-axis, we have to go plus or minus 20. Now, where approximately is square root of 20? Well, square root of 16 is 4, and square root of 25 is 5. So, about 4.5. So maybe it's around here. We are remembering to just approximate this. So it's a little bit longer because it's only 4 on the x-axis, the intercepts. There we go. Approximately. Make sure you at least curve it a little bit, And what goes into the y squared? B squared goes under it, the bigger number. And so since b squared is 20, there we go. All right, let's try this problem. Find the equation of a horizontal ellipse with center 0, 0 if the length of the major axis is 12 and the length of the minor axis is 8. State the foci and graph the ellipse. All right, it's a horizontal ellipse centered at 0, 0, so we know it's of this form. We know the bigger number is going to be under the x squared because it's a horizontal ellipse. So the major axis must be the x-axis. So what does that tell you? If the length is 12, then it must be 6 to the right and 6 to the left. So we know those are on the ellipse. That means the minor axis must be on the y-axis, so it's got to be 4 up and 4 down. So graphing isn't too hard. We get that pretty quickly. All right, so what do we have underneath the y-axis and the x-axis? Well, since it's 6 in each direction, the intercepts are 6. This is going to be 6 squared. So you could write 6 squared or 36. And on the y-axis, it's 4, right? 4 up and 4 down. Since the intercepts are 4 and negative 4, it's going to be 4 squared, which is 16. So that is our equation. But I also asked the foci. What's the foci? So how do you get that? We know c squared is the bigger number minus the smaller number. So if c squared's 20, c is plus or minus the square root of 20, which is t squared's a 5. Really didn't need to write that here. All right, so the question is this on the x-axis or on the y-axis? It's on the major axis. So the foci are, and I'm just going to write this the easy way, plus or minus t squared's a 5, 0. It's on the x-axis. Now if you want to see where that is, it's approximately where square root of 20 is, which is about, 4.5, something like that. We're just estimating, so that's where the foci are. Somewhere around here. Please visit my website at yourmathgal.com where you can view all of my videos which are organized by topic.